The winter of 1987 in Briarwood was merciless. Snow blanketed the town in silence, the kind that made distant sounds seem impossibly loud. Frost clung to every tree branch, and the streets were deserted by mid-afternoon, except for children daring the cold on sleds or bikes. Among them were Lucy and Peter Briarwood, twins known for their boundless energy, mischievous grins, and the unspoken bond that made them inseparable. On the morning of their disappearance, Margaret Briarwood had called them in for lunch, but they begged for just one more lap around the frozen pond near the woods. Their cheeks glowed red, hair sticking out from under knitted hats, laughter echoing in the still air. Their father, a stoic man with a deep, unwavering love, had warned them to return before the sun fell behind the pine trees. They waved him off, confident in their youthful invincibility. Hours later, the laughter had faded. Only their tire tracks remained, leading into the woods and then abruptly vanishing near the pond's edge. Search parties scoured the frozen forest. Dogs sniffed through snowdrifts. Every abandoned cabin, shed, and hidden trail was combed. But Lucy and Peter had disappeared without a trace. Their beds remained untouched, their schoolbooks stacked neatly on desks, as if they had simply walked away. The town mourned quietly. Briarwood was small, its residents tightly knit, and yet suspicion and fear crept between neighbors. Whispers spread. Had they wandered too far into the woods? Had someone taken them? Or had the lake itself, rumored to have strange, unpredictable currents even when frozen, claimed them? The police eventually closed the case, citing undetermined circumstances, and life, reluctantly, went on. Margaret never stopped searching. Her grief became a constant, a quiet hum behind every action. She posted flyers every winter, walked the woods alone, asked travelers if they had seen two children matching her twins' description. She refused to give up hope. Peter and Lucy were out there somewhere. They had to be. 14 years later, Briarwood's frozen lake became the center of impossible speculation. It was February 2001, and the winter had been harsher than most. Two boys, exploring the edges of the ice, stumbled upon something shocking: two bright red bicycles, perfectly preserved beneath the ice, their tires glinting in the pale sunlight. At first, the boys laughed, assuming some prank, but the details didn't add up. These were children's bikes, identical in size and design to ones made in 1987, Lucy and Peter's bikes. Within hours, the story spread. Margaret was called immediately. Her heart raced uncontrollably as she arrived at the lake. She stared at the bikes, a mixture of disbelief and raw hope washing over her. She could almost feel the twins' presence in the icy air. The lake's surface shimmered unnaturally, the ice beneath the bikes clear as glass, as if the twins had paused mid-ride and vanished into nothing. Footprints led from the bikes into the edge of the woods, stopping at a decrepit cabin that had long been abandoned. Margaret followed them, calling their names, tears freezing on her cheeks. The cabin was empty. Dust covered everything. But there was something off. The air was heavier, colder than outside. A faint smell of pine and smoke lingered, though no fire had burned in decades. Investigators examined the footprints and the ice, but nothing could explain the phenomenon. The bikes bore fingerprints matching the twins, yet no one could account for the time gap, nor the preservation of the bikes beneath the ice. Experts in physics and forensic science were baffled. Time, it seemed, had folded around this spot like a fragile sheet of glass. As Margaret spent her days at the lake, she began to notice other strange occurrences. Snowflakes sometimes fell in spirals, as if tracing invisible paths. The ice glimmered unnaturally on some nights, reflecting shapes that weren't there. At dawn, faint laughter echoed across the frozen expanse, too high-pitched and fleeting to be human. People who passed by claimed to see two small figures on the ice, shadows moving with the wind, vanishing when approached. One night, Margaret dreamt of the twins. Lucy's laughter rang crystal clear. Peter waved from a distance, their eyes reflecting a world she could not touch. "We're safe," they said. "We're waiting." When she awoke, the room smelled of pine and frost, and the soft echo of laughter lingered. The town, too, began to feel the lake's power. Children were warned not to play near the ice after dark. Hunters reported seeing strange reflections in the frozen water. Even the local pastor refused to cross the lake after nightfall. Briarwood, once sleepy and quiet, had become a place of whispered superstitions, its residents fearful of the frozen expanse that held the twins' mystery. Over the next winter, Margaret returned to the lake daily. She brought blankets, cocoa, and toys, speaking to the twins as though they were there. Occasionally, she would place the bikes in the center of the ice, hoping, praying, that the twins might somehow return. One afternoon, a young journalist named Simon Crane arrived, determined to uncover the truth. Skeptical but intrigued, he interviewed Margaret and explored the lake with careful measurements and cameras. What Simon captured on film terrified him. Footprints appeared on the ice out of nowhere, forming impossible patterns. Shadows moved against the wind. And for one brief moment, he thought he saw two small children racing across the frozen lake, their red bikes glinting under the pale sun, before vanishing into thin air. Simon's footage went viral. Paranormal investigators and skeptics alike descended on Briarwood, but no one could explain the phenomena. Every winter, the frozen lake kept its secrets. No matter how much technology or reasoning was applied, Lucy and Peter remained beyond reach, trapped, or preserved, in a place where time had forgotten them. Years later, Margaret, now gray and frail, still visited the lake each winter. One evening, as the sun set and the ice turned orange gold, she swore she saw two small figures waving from across the frozen expanse. Her heart surged with hope, and she whispered, "I'll come, I promise." The figures lingered, then disappeared, leaving only a faint echo of laughter carried by the wind. Briarwood changed after the twins' reappearance, or, rather, their impossibility. The woods grew quiet, the town whispered more than it spoke, and parents told children stories of the lake, warning them that some places were meant to remain mysterious. Some said Lucy and Peter were caught between worlds, a bridge frozen in time. Others claimed the lake had simply chosen to hold onto them, guarding them against a cruel reality. But Margaret knew the truth, or at least a part of it. Somewhere beyond the ice, her children were alive, waiting. And she would wait for them, for as long as she could breathe, knowing that some mysteries were bigger than grief, bigger than fear, bigger than time itself. The frozen lake never thawed completely. Every winter, the red bikes gleamed beneath its icy surface, a promise, a warning, and a mystery that Briarwood would never forget.